Hello and welcome back to the Self-Help Bookshelf, the High Leverage Actions podcast. Yet another amazing weekly discussion coming about a self-care topic that can help you find your higher self through small changes. And this week we are talking about self-care and remembering to take time out. Now, we've also got something a little special about this title this week, as it's one that's recommended by somebody from the Facebook group. So thank you to Laura. And I think it was the Facebook, not the YouTube, she commented on. So thank you to Laura for suggesting this topic or engaging in the group. And let's go and see what we can make out of a conversation of this to help you. So hi, I'm Kay Reeve, emotional awareness expert. And this is Rory. Say hi, Rory.
No, Rory Lemonade, but AID to help go by on the internet, and I'm a neurodiverse health and creative flow coach, and yeah, it's there to help people that are sensitive to get out of procrastination back into creating their projects that they want to get going with.
Brilliant. I was saying you can learn more about us by keep listening. We're going to hold some of it back today. If you want to find out more, keep listening and we'll put some bits in. So self-care is absolutely a really big topic when it comes to personal development, because it's great that we build all these skills for understanding emotions and being able to understand other people and communicate and to be able to just reach out into the world on a higher level. But there are sometimes when even the most amazing people in personal development can forget to stop and take care of themselves, and they end up with burnout and other issues in mental health. So let's breathe and take a moment to take some time out with this conversation today. So Rory, would you like to read out the comment that Laura put into, and I can't remember the original question. It was one of the weekly questions. And then we take this forward for you.
Well, it's basically a statement around remembering to take time out, being busy with parenting, and a lot to do with that really. And that was the what I picked up on as a key topic as well, which was I think important to I just noticed that and went, oh, that's a really great topic, because it's not just knowing about it. You can read as much as you like about it, but the actual reality of when things are just going on, and how to remember, which is something something that I've actually picked up on through the interviews I've done with clients as well. It's not just, especially with something like struggling with ADHD at all, or something like that, where the mind is flying about a lot,
Mm.
and how to actually work with it. How can we work with our brains rather than fighting against it, or looking back and going, oh, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. It's kind of almost that could have an opposite effect of what we want with when we're trying to look after ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot going on. Thank you, Rory. That's a really good sort of summary of what was being said, and definitely busy. And I can think back to when I was a mum trying to deal with a suicidal son. I was trying to keep my relationship intact. I was working for a corporate job. I had my daughter to look after as well. I used to go and help, by visiting my nan a couple of times a week when she was elderly. And when you've got all of this stuff going on all at the same time, and then you are trying to put in time to keep the balance, because like all of that stuff sort of weighs down and it's really heavy on one end of the seesaw, and it becomes overwhelming and overloaded on you. So it's remembering to actually make that effort to redress the balance by putting all the good stuff in. And so I think really it's, what do we mean by the good stuff? And I think there's a lot of ways we can take this today in like looking at more about how we can and cannot manage the overwhelm, because for some people you can't remove some of the stresses that are going on, whereas for other people they could, depending on the circumstances. And then obviously later on there's the strategies for actually managing that self-care So I don't know if you want to go through this in a kind of a process today, or we'd just throw it about and see what comes out.
What comes up for me is 2 points that I just want to go straight to the point of yeah, like you say, the overwhelm can build up. It's the stress resilience goes down over the day, or even if you wait, there's that idea of waking up on the wrong side of the bed or something like that. That term where that's an actual term that suggests even more necessary in those moments of waking up to actually take that little bit of time, because starting off like that doesn't necessarily help us. Yes, all have bodily and difficult processes that go through, and maybe there's phases of our life that are much more challenging, or even on a monthly basis for women, that where that sort of inflammatory process just kicks in, and it's like, oh, I have to do the same thing, and all I want to do is rest or whatever. And so that sense of when that's happening, it's remembering that the even the smallest amount of mindfulness practice is what they call positive intelligence reps, which is the understanding the neuroscience behind mindfulness that actually causes changes in the brain, and knowing that it's not just, hey, mindfulness is great for clearing the mind and creating a bit of relaxation moments, but it's actually a physical energy shift and attention. When attention goes to a different part of the brain, blood flow goes there. When blood flow goes there more, then more cells are created, and so we get stronger. And so there's the idea, just really, really, really briefly, there's there's catching the negative cycles of the mind. Then there's self-commanding ourselves into the moment. And then there's, what do we do with it once we're neutral and we can actually guide that? Because sometimes if we're just trying to stay neutral, or don't think of the negative stuff, don't think of the negative stuff, don't think of the stress, don't think of the stress, it was just going to be thinking of the stress. So just coming back to neutral is so powerful. However, there are positive focuses, which isn't just about trying to avoid the negative and feel and try to be happy. So catching, clearing, and then refocusing and actually redirecting a certain energy or focus or power, as it's called. So, for instance, compassion is an actual sensed feeling, or curiosity is a sensed feeling that we can explore. And just as two ideas, even just then, just shifting from one to the one back to neutral, then to that one, can just be 5 minutes of relaxation. And those that go, oh, well, I've got to do all of this and I've got to do all of that, and there's just no way I can even go away on my own and do it. This is the idea that I can rub my fingertips together whilst talking to someone that potentially is tr triggering, or whatever you want to call it, whatever's causing, or a sense of that's challenge or struggle. We're still reacting to whatever it is. So that again is either the battery's gone down and we're just triggered for that reason, or that there is something that's reminding, or the situation is reminding us of another challenge from the past, and that is actually then causing that stress response. So either way, the tiniest 10 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how emotionally charged we are in that negative part of the brain, to come back to central. So as I'm talking, I could listen to the sound of my voice whilst I'm talking, and that will be self-commanding back to neutral at least, and creating that mental muscle for mindfulness. And that's where it starts to integrate into other places until it becomes an actual embodied practice, rather than having to think about it. So it's the smallest often is important. And the final piece that comes up for me
So
is
before you
memory
finish.
triggers. Memory triggers. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I was going to say, yeah, because for me, when you're talking about the PQ reps, as you call them, and that sensory part. And then the person who's saying, I haven't got time, I haven't got time, I haven't got time, there is actually ways of stacking them together. And it's coming to my mind suddenly. It's like, oh, yeah, and I do that. And it's like, even sitting here talking, I might be sitting here fiddling with a pen off screen. And, and I've got this little textured bit in here. And so I can be doing that. And like when I was in meetings, I'm always fiddling with my pen. I'm not one of these people that sits here clicking, but there's always something sensory there, or the spine of a notebook. But for people who are parenting at home and the family life is overwhelming, there are ways to do it there as well. And it might be when you're walking to the car with the keys in your hand, feeling the keys and being sort of grateful that you've got this car, and bringing in gratitude that you can at least take the children to school in a car and not have to walk them 6 miles or whatever. And there are, when you're driving as well, you've got the stitching around the inside of the steering wheel, you can feel with your thumbs. So if the kids start to stress you and overwhelm you, there's all these little sensory ways throughout the day. So it doesn't have to be stop and just do the fingertips. There's lots of ways. It might be something in your pocket, or texture your clothing, or kids sitting in exams and stressed, or class, they'll sit there and fiddle and pluck at their clothing. And there are so many ways, but it's obviously better to be constructive rather than destroying the school uniforms. We're trying to get away from that one. But it's finding those lots of ways. Washing up the bubbles, and the sensation of certain things when washing up, or the smell. What washing up liquid you pick. And I always used to pick a fragrance where I would enjoy the aroma of it when it's fresh in the bowl with the hot water. Any other ways you can think of, Rory? Guitar for you, I know. But
Uh, yeah. Yeah, but mainly the quickest ways are just through the senses. So, like visual, I can stare at a single point, and that can actually that's meant to bring in mental acuity focus much more easily when we use the visual mindfulness. So, focusing on one spot without analyzing it and just seeing the textures, colors, and the contours of the shapes and the shades, and just being really mindful of what the sensation of the visuals is like rather than the analysis of it. Um, yeah, there's taste, sight, sound, smell, and touch. So those are the all the four that can be done in the moment, and especially that's what mental fitness is about. It's not going away and doing practice, because that is useful, and it's actually often when it's like, hey, I'm doing my yoga or my meditation practice, and then immediately going away and it not being transferable, whereas it totally can be. And that's the thing, is that, so it's how to transfer it into the moments when we feel stress, so we can actually then again learn to turn. It's all about mental rehearsal and memory triggers in order to set that up. And then is also, oh, I'm feeling this feeling, what's this? Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed, okay. And then feeling and being mindful of the overwhelm, not only will that sort of dissipate it, but also it helps to then be present to it rather than making meaning of it. And then we can then go, okay, oh, I feel the sense of overwhelm for a reason, because I want to take this action, or I want to not, I want to remove myself, or whatever it is, and getting present to what the feeling is rather than the thought behind it.
yeah.
So yeah, but that mental rehearsal of tomorrow morning, what will I do? And also write down a memory trigger, like a post-it note, and actually wake up with it stuck on my forehead. Might be a way to remember to take that 5 minutes, even if it's, oh, I got to get out of bed right now. What about sliding out of the covers really mindfully so you can feel the duvet, feet on the floor, the socks going on, and just me describing it potentially then helps to remember it. And so what could your morning completely shift like if it was a case of being mindful just in that moment of getting out of bed, even if that's what you have to do or get to do, just that moment of what could it look like, and how different it could it be to just do that, for instance.
And that definitely does make a difference. I've done that kind of thing a lot. Um, and it is every moment of every day that mindfulness can help And I think the whole point of this was about micromanaging energy. And especially when a lot of people are dealing with children with neurodiversity, where they are relentless in all the best ways. You love them to bits, but they're relentless, they're time consuming. And for those parents that just do not get a break, it's like, how can you make your body and your mind feel like you're getting a break, even when you are still working? And you can imagine it. I'm just in my head, I'm thinking, we know how quickly something can happen and it drains our energy very quickly. But what if we could just keep doing lots and lots and lots of little things throughout the day, whilst doing what we have to do anyway, that actually help to recharge that battery like a trickle charge throughout the day? So rather than looking at it as somewhere in a 24-hour day of chaos, finding 5 minutes to be mindful, what about if everything you did throughout the day, you did mindfully? Like Rory says about getting out of bed by sort of sliding out of the covers. When you're washing and shaving and whatever you do in the morning. And it's about doing all of those processes mindfully as well, and not, oh, I've got to rush, got to do it. It's not about doubling the time, but it's about doing it in the same time, but of a focus of actually, I'm looking after myself, caring for myself, washing my face, whatever I'm doing. And it's enjoying the sensation of the waters, the soaps, the smells, the temperatures, the textures, like the flannels and towels, and actually enjoying the process, even if you're doing it at the same speed, rather than being stressed that you've got to get it done in that speed. And just shifting that mindset shifts your energy throughout that process. Sitting and eating, the moment you do sit down to eat breakfast with your children, eating mindfully, and it teaches them the same as well. Getting dressed, all the processes of the textures and the buttons and the sensation of the fabrics as you put them on. And then there's the household tasks. And this is the one that I used to love, was like, okay, I hate doing the washing, but when you're pulling that washing out of the machine, rather than just yanking it out and go, I've got to get it on the line, is actually, while you're pulling it out, enjoy the smell of it being fresh and clean and whatever aroma it's got. And while you're hanging it on the line, the same. And if you're hanging it outside, also remember to enjoy the sunshine and the breeze and the birds singing, the smell of the pollen in spring. And there's literally so much every single day that can just trickle charge your energy upwards to prevent it being depleted so much by everything else that you still have to keep doing.
Yeah, I love it.
Can you
Um,
tell I've practiced that
and
a bit?
it's always, and it's sometimes another thing that can come up is like, uh, but yeah, it's how that how we've learnt in the past up until now whether something's tricky or difficult or not. So, if a 2-year-old has no idea about the bills to pay or the stresses of or whatever it is that's coming up in that moment, if they've I know that they don't have to deal with that as such. However, their concept of it is completely clear. So we've learned that to believe and the perception of whatever we believe is stressful or we've got to deal with as it is stressful and we have to deal with it. And so language that we can use is something like, oh, I get to do this or I get to do that. And it puts it out of the should or have to into the future as something that if I get to do it, then it has it depends on the words and whether they make sense to the person, but generally that to me that frees it up as a sense of I get to do that, and then it's less heavy, that feels less heavy to do, and then I get to do it, and then it's done. And uh yeah, the chill. Oh yeah, one other word that came up for me was gamify. So so anything where it depends on the capacity of the child, obviously, and where they're at. But often there's moments when playing as a game of some kind, they would probably at least entertain 2 minutes of something that could completely shift the perspective again. in some way, shape, or form. So how can you add in how can someone add in a a way in which, oh, I've got to do this, but it's got to be a certain way. But can there be a way to change and gamify that?
Yeah,
And an example is my cards as well around um perspective on if I'm feeling tense or stressed about something, and I develop these cards to deal with anxiety. So if I pick one now and just remind myself to create trust, what does that mean? Oh, that gives me a sense of, oh yeah, I've got to now by trusting everything that I believed in ch every single choice up until now, I've created in my life, and I trusted all of that, even if I trusted um the negative stuff that comes up. I still trusted in not trusting it. So at those points, so whatever we've come up to right now, it just that again it just reminds me of what can I put my trust in around that. And so just check flips perspective, what kind of little tricks and ways can there be to uh flip that
yeah.
perspective in the moments?
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. You say having the cards or something, little reminder. And it could be a jar with little bits of paper in as reminders that you pull one out and see what it says. You know, whether you do affirmations or a little fun task like, okay, I've got 5 minutes for a coffee, or I can go down the garden for a walk or something. And, you know, just put in little things that if you have 2 to 5 minutes spare, just pull out something as a little activity for those few minutes.
Yeah.
Another one I've got on here, I'll just show my phone briefly at the top here. It's not going to be very clear, but there's a little purple griffin, which is called Habitica, this one. And that is like a game in there. Oh, it's giving me rewards. Welcome. Sorry, bear with me. I didn't do it yesterday. I'm unlocking prizes as I go. There we go. So this one, and it's not very easy to show you on screen, but you put in all of the tasks that you do every day. There's habits you can build, and you can either gain or lose points from them. Tasks that you want to be doing every single day, and then there's other things like a one-off to do things, and then you just tick them as you've done them, and it gives you like a game thing to work through. It is quite interesting, and you can actually join other people. So for me, there's myself, both my children, my daughter-in-law, and two of my grandchildren are all on that, and we all work together to defeat monsters in quests, and then we get rewards to feed pets that you earn. And so there's quite a lot goes on in that for just ticking off at the end of the day. I've done this job, I've done that job, I've actually built this habit up. I avoided doing that one, and whatever, you know, you can add in whatever you want at the end of the day. And so it's quite flexible.
That's
And there was one other one I was going to say is like having some sort of tokens or coins where every time you've achieved something is looking at the reward based session of it. If it's financially viable for you to do this, is okay, I've achieved certain goals every day, and you put a coin in a jar or something, or coin or a token, and at the end of the month transfer that to a monetary value and go and treat yourself. So that's another way, is if you like the slightly longer term goals. So lots and lots of ways of rewarding as well. So,
exciting, exciting times. I'm just going to wrap it up with just a couple of other things that came up for me, which was that again, that I love that sense of that if that's, something that really aligns and it's easy to get on with and do the sort of tracking kind of game. And then there's
yeah.
just like literally the opposite kind of end of the spectrum would be put on a favorite tune, even if it's like having to go for a walk or something and just shaking it off just for even and just allowing some fun, just that moment of fun.
Racing the feeling. Yep.
Prince. And yeah. And I can't remember what I was going to say. So yeah,
Oh, yeah. Don't know. Is it off the back of all the reward based goals bits, or?
yeah, having fun dancing.
So basically, we hope for Laura's sake, while you're thinking of that, and we hope for Laura's sake and anybody else who's watching this, that it really does give you some tips on not necessarily having to completely change your life, because what we don't do here is tell you you need to change your life to feel better about it. You know, we've all created the life we want and life we love, but it's how to manage that in a positive, constructive, mindful way. So you still do your daily routine as you normally would, but enjoying the process rather than feeling like you are being dragged through the process. And sometimes that's all the difference it takes to feel like your higher self. I've
Okay,
already
okay,
remembered it now.
I just remembered. So, what I like to call power stimming. So, there's the idea that there's neurodivergence, or especially children that fidget toys, having to play with things like you just said about the pens and stuff. And so, if that is sort of what is stimming is often termed because of doing something to rescue or maintain a sort of stress response that's going on. And so that actually, if it's created as a more intentional space of, again, coming back to neutral, and then I'm often doing this or tapping as well, below the camera, and so that the tapping creates rhythm and safety, and it's a really amazing way to uh consciously not just go from stress to stillness, but stillness to um uh, feeling empowered in a lot of ways. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you, Rory. And that's been a really good topic. And sometimes don't forget one of the easiest ways to recenter is just to breathe. Even that can be a rescue remedy, a single breath. So, whatever it takes for you, however little, however much you've got time for, embrace every second of it you can, every second of the day, and make every day amazing. So, that's
Yeah,
been great. And I
I,
think
and
we have,
there's the I've just remembered the like a light switch or a kettle switch as well. So switches are quite useful. Putting uh post-it notes and stuff on switches, just like turning the light on. Oh yeah, I get to remember to be remindful. Remindful. There you go. We get practice remindfulness.
mindfulness. Yeah, that's a good one. There's a new word for you. Well done, Rory.
Excellent.
Mindfulness. That's going in your course, isn't it?
Yep.
Along with the forgifting, yeah. Forgifting and mind for my I've forgotten it already. Remindfulness. Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. And we have a great topic for next week, unless we come up with something else. We're going to go animal themed. We are going to challenge ourselves next week to look at the mentality of humans versus animals, like herd mentality, etc., etc. We're going to look at colonies and things like that, and do some human behavior comparisons next week. So be prepared for a good one.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. And any comments, highlights, just stick them below, because we always like to hear from anyone, what you get from it, what questions you may have, or just highlights are great. Yeah.
Oh, I love questions. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. In fact, the more dumb the question seems, the better I like answering it. And I know Rory does too. So all the questions you can come up with, we love them. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening to High Leverage Actions podcast, where we make small personal development strategy conversations to help you find your higher self. See you next week.
Cheers.